And the Russians don't use hybrid except to discuss how we think about warfare. They call it new generation warfare. There are 9 elements of new generation warfare, which are not sequential. They can occur any way, any time, in any pattern. It's like tools in a toolbox, and they bring out whatever tool is appropriate to the moment. Right now, Putin is already at war with the European Union and NATO. He just isn't using overt, violent means today. I think from the General Staff's perspective, the Russian General Staff is working very hard to prepare its armed forces to bring anything that becomes an overt war to an end, a successful conclusion for them. Essentially, to get NATO to stop fighting. If you look at the Zapad exercises in 1999, 2009, 2013, they're all the same exercise. There are different elements which reflect, I would say, the evolving Russian impression of the determination of NATO states to resist. But essentially, it's the same scenario. I think we will see in the 2017 Zapad exercise a change, because the Russians have already changed their force posture. They've created the First Guards Tank Army. That was a result of the decisions that were taken in Wales and in Warsaw during the NATO summits. First of all, with regard to Ukraine, we need to remember what they are actually contributing to our security. When Russia first attacked Ukraine, Ukraine was able to produce about 10 battalion tactical groups. Today, they have 66 battalion tactical groups led by very competent officers, equipped rather well now. So Ukraine actually is being the shield for Europe. They are containing Russia. If one turns to Belarus, one would have to argue that Belarus is probably like a dagger pointed at the heart of Poland. I think we need to give some very careful thought to how we deal with Mr. Lukashenko. He may not be our choice as a Democrat, but right now, a sovereign and independent Belarus serves NATO and European security interess. We should do everything we can to support an independent, sovereign Belarus. Putin usually tries to do whatever it is he wants, and right now Mr. Lukashenko is not cooperating with Mr. Putin. The Russians announced their plans for Zapad 2017, which will be supposed to take place in September, and they hadn't even coordinated them with Belarus. Russians have ordered more than 4,200 flat cars to move their forces into Belarus. That news came as a surprise to the Belarus Defense Ministry. So, I think that there is a strong possibility that we could have the next crisis in Europe in Belarus this year. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that we should be prepared for that in advance and do everything we can to deter aggression against Belarus. Well, first thing, Russia is putting tremendous economic pressure on Belarus. And so we could take actions, for example, in the way of energy, et cetera, and do whatever we can to relieve some of the pressure that Russia is putting on Belarus. I think that would be one immediate step. I would also like to see very strong economic sanctions agreed to between the European Union and the United States with a triggering mechanism. Russia invades Belarus, they automatically come into effect. And they should be ones that do not require renewal, that those sanctions will take place and remain in place until Russia withdraws from Belarus. So it should be that kind of a mechanism could be put in place, which would have a very strong deterrent effect in terms of Russian intervention in Belarus.